The various conceptual metaphors and image schema, kinesthetic image schema, that populate the writings of George Lakoff and Mark Johnson particularly, but others also, all of them have this kind of resolute Newtonian kind of physics behind them. Well, not Newtonian actually, I haven't said that. They're all inevitably, because of the structure of the theory, they're all descriptions of the physical world that we routinely inhabit, and it's obviously a good evolutionary or adaptive account about why that might be, but it's all of the images are medium-sized images moving at medium speed. If I can go back to that phrase from Dawkins. They're all to do with containers, and those containers are all the sort of containers that you can sort of wrap your hand around or hold in your hand. They're all spaces, and those spaces are all navigable spaces. They're all kind of Cartesian spaces, not exactly Cartesian, but kind of Cartesian spaces. They're certainly not non-Euclidean, or they're not Minkowski space or something odd like that. They're all this space, the space of the real world, the space in which Newtonian physics tends to operate. The landscape across which image schema, such as the source path goal schema, is very well described in that writing. That's the landscape of fields and roads and paths, journeys, pilgrimages. There are no relativistic effects in that journey. There are no quantum effects taking place within the objects that move along that journey, the landmarks, the trajectory. It's all very of this world. And as I've already said, the reason for that is obvious. It's because it's intended to provide information appropriate for the successful operation within this world for adaptive reasons. So in a sense, you could probably say that this landscape of metaphors, I can't even talk about it without using metaphors, but this catalogue, landscape, space, database of metaphors and image schemas, of containers and conduits and landmarks and trajectors and spaces. This database has a kind of physics to it, and that physics which determines, what's possible and what's not possible in that space. And that physics is, broadly speaking, Newtonian. I don't think it's exactly Newtonian. And it's also has a kind of logic to it, and that logic is also the logic of medium-sized physics, we call it that. So, for example, there's a logical reason why an object can be inside of a container, and if it's inside of a container, it can't simultaneously be outside of the container. That underpins certain tenets in logic, but it also underpins. It's also drawn from a certain understanding of physics, and that physics is medium-sized physics. There are physics in which entities can be in two places simultaneously. There are physics in which entities can influence each other non-locally, as they say. But those physics don't pertain to physics of image schemas, it seems. The physics of image schemas, as mentioned, seems to be largely Newtonian, broadly speaking Cartesian, but with a distinctly phenomenological aspect to it, and an aspect to it also which seems to be drawn from the fact that we're not just medium-sized objects moving at medium speed, we're medium-sized social mammals moving at medium speed, with all of the additional survival requirements that being a social mammal has. So it's a physics which is coloured by interpersonal psychology and by the demands of an embodied survival, the need to understand and predict not just the actions of inert objects, but also to predict potential actions of earth objects, of agents, of other beings with minds apparently like our own, possibly like our own, medium-sized agents moving at medium speed, you might say. So it seems to me that the physics which pertains to the world of image schema, the ideas of image schema and the ideas of conceptual metaphors, that physics is, although it might be a slightly Newtonian, it corresponds better to what's sometimes called naive physics or folk physics. I think the term naive physics was first coined by Pat Hayes in relation to the development of artificial intelligence research. But I think it's been used many times since. I know Smith and Casati have done some really great work on it, and one of the principles that comes out of that physics, which is the naive physics and folk physics, is the intuitions that we have about the world prior to doing formal experiments. Experiments often show us the world which isn't terribly intuitive. So naive physics is the expectations we have of how the world would operate physically prior to conducting those experiments. And one of the principles of naive physics that Smith and Casati bring out is this idea that the world is not only, broadly speaking, Newtonian, it also has agency. We seem to confer, expect, or actually find the presence of mind in the world, not separated from its physical structure, the way that we would do in conventional physics, but built into it as part of a sort of understanding. So I think what I'm saying here is that the image schema, which is described by Lakoff and Johnson and other writers, is organised, broadly speaking, in line with naive physics. Although there may, and I've talked about this elsewhere, there may be additional factors which lie out with the reach of any physics, naive or Newtonian or any non-standard physical structure. And I think the example I've given elsewhere is the fact that metaphors and image schema, when we use them, either in our language or in our conceptualization, aren't stable. They constantly mix and hybridize and mutate, sometimes even the same sentence, as indeed they have in this one.